Journeys Ahead. Lineage. Chapter 7. Unite. Written and narrated by T.S. ProArt. With a sore and tired awakening, Void cracked open his eyes to a grayish-yellow morning haze that struck him in the left side of his face. It was now daytime. Several hours had passed since the events that transpired from above, and Void instantly felt its after effects. His body was numb, stiff, and visibly battered. His hoodie remained torn, and his chest was still as clunked as ever. Yet, as for the rest of his build, Void was shocked by what he saw. His leg was all repaired, having been replaced with another one from his older body types, for one had been laying next to the wall with its limb missing. It was then the Spark realized that he was actually back in his room. For the most part, Void's body had been self-repaired and missed his sleep, but what truly made the pain fade was seeing Pofnu, Joby, and Jida at his side, asleep, but there nonetheless. The musician sat in a chair beside the Spark, her right hand intertwined around his left as she sat slumped in a nervous slumber. Pofnu rested next to him, her head laying promptly atop Void's chest, while Joby rested on her knees upon the ground, with both hands held firm upon the repaired limb. From them emanated a healing yellow glow that, to Void's surprise, sealed away the pain in an almost cozy embrace. The snowstorm had ceased to a gentle fall in the morning light, as tiny specks fluttered down like small birds leaving their nest. The sky was that of gray stone clouds mixed with a bright yellow light, looking almost angelic in some weird way. The Spark, though, quickly found this sense of ease to wash away as the disaster that was last night came flooding back in like a tidal wave. "Core!" Void blurted out as he slowly attempted to get out of bed. Opening her eyes with an accompanied orange flare in her hair, Jida turned her sleepy head towards her husband and instantly gasped in both relief yet worried. "Void!" She tiredly called out, while the Spark looked back towards her with the most dour and betrayed face she had ever seen. "Freckles," the Spark muttered as both Joby and Pofnu awoke as well. Leaning forward, the married pair nuzzled their foreheads together, both visibly shaken by the events that took place those few hours ago. Void wasn't sure to what extent they knew. He didn't know if Joby told them, or perhaps it was all a confusing blur. "Uncle Void," Joby tiredly expressed with a relieved tone, before letting go of his healed leg and lunging forward into his arms. Hey kid," Void greeted as Pofnu began to rapidly lick his face and wag her massive tails. "Hi, girl. Everyone." The Spark's voice was rough, exhausted. Although better than last night, he still felt the urge to rest, but his call to action was the stronger pull in this scenario. He had to get back to the reformatter. I gotta go." Void groaned as he tried to stand up. "Excuse me?" Jida asked, right as Nock burst into the room with the others behind him. "Absolutely not!" he bellowed before approaching Void with a toolbox in hand. "You aren't going anywhere!" He stated aloud before bringing out a flashlight and wrench, examining a portion of the Spark's leg. "No, Nock, you don't understand. I need to. Void rambled before the small mechanic retorted back with a stern tone. "Joby told us everything. It was hard to believe, but..." Nock revealed as Tucker, Sarv, Jet, and Kot entered the room and stood by the Spark's bedside. "Welcome back, soldier. You doing alright?" the massive Thorn asked as she rubbed Void's head with her massive, feathery fingers. "You look like hell. It's like you took a bomb head on," the large bull of a man expressed as he bumped his fist against the Spark's shoulder sphere. Did Cole, I mean, it sounds ludicrous, but did he actually?" Kot asked in a stutter, leaving Void to look down and sigh in a hurt tone. Slowly reaching a hand over, he tapped the front left side of his upper chest, revealing a hidden button that blended itself in with the rest of his body. In response, causing his crest to outline the shimmer blue, and then project a hologram recording of the night prior. Although the entirety of his head was organic, the connection it had towards his biomechanical body allowed for his memories to be projected like recordings from a camera. Jida had always found it to be awesome, but Nock and the others were ones to find it a little bit weird. But putting their thoughts aside, everyone looked up to see what happened through Void's. The betrayal and horrors he bare witness to. Everybody took it in. The lies, the deception, the worlds that were destroyed, and the utter horror to what Core became. What he said, the words boasted about Void's and Jida's unborn child sent a wave of shattered emotions through the musician's heart. Her face dropped further, and her hair turned to shimmer a blue shade of sorrow. Oh my god. Sarv expressed in shock while covering her beak. Pieces, I don't believe it. Nock muttered as he put his tools aside and adjusted his glasses. I tried to tell you, warn you. Now at any minute they could attack. Joey began as Gluppy slowly trailed himself to be upon her shoulder. I don't know where, when. All I know is that your world is in serious danger. Joey sputtered through a shaken breath. That's why I need to go. I need to stop them. Void began again and stood upon shaken legs. Void, wait! Jida shouted with a panicking sense before standing up and gripping her hand around his arm. Wait. She repeated, leaving the spark to turn and look into her wintry eyes. Gently raising her hands up, Jida held both sides of Void's head and sent a warming and loving touch to fill his soul. Their hearts felt the beat as one, as the taller of two leaned her head forward to his. If you're going up there, you're not going in alone. Not after how you came back. You could have died. Jida firmly stated as Sarv approached with a stern look on display. I agree, hun. If you plan on going back up there to kick some tail, then by all means, let us help you. The massive thorn suggested with a cross on her feathery arms, just as Nock spoke aloud as well. If what we just saw is true, then I'd be more than willing to help. This is our world, our home. If that son of a bitch plans to tear us down, then we'll do the same to him. Nock expressed in a betrayed voice, leaving Void to look down with a mixture of emotions. I know we need to stop him, but I don't want to hurt my brother. There was something in his eyes, a light, like a shimmering sense that didn't want to do this. I have to try and convince him to turn away from this, all of this. Void explained with a hurt tone to his voice, before looking at everyone within the room. This isn't like the glitched, or the constrictors. This is something that runs deeper. If we board the reformatter, I don't want you all to go in trigger happy. They're still my friends, my family, my blood. Our blood. Void expressed as he looked upon Joey's nervous stare. I know there's good in them. They weren't like this before. I have to convince them to stop. I know I can. Before Void could continue his reasoning, the ground suddenly shook from a violent and rumbling impact. Like an earthquake, the entirety of Nock's workshop vibrated and creaked. Shelf items fell, plates and tables crumbled, all as something damaged the world they stood upon. Earthquake! Everyone get down, it's an earthquake! Cod exclaimed with fear before Joby spoke up in a nervous voice. No, not an earthquake. She replied before a familiar horn erupted from the skies outside. Instantly looking to one another, everyone recognized the sound. It was the horn of the reformatter, the same noise it made when crashing into the trees of Aurora's forest. It was here. Scrambling out of the room, the massive group ran on their feet to get up on the roof of the workshop. Ascending the small flight of stairs and bursting out into the cold open air, Void with everyone in tow stood upon the workshop's top, and at last saw what made the impact. A few miles away, there sat a massive, diamond-shaped piece of glowing orange metal. It had lodged itself into the street, being the size of several buildings combined into one large anchor. From its end rose up a 1,000-foot chain that drifted into the golden gray skies above. The chain itself illuminated with a pulsating white glow that streamlined with rivers of bubbling matter, melting the snow that was nearby. Then to the right, several more miles away, shot down the second anchor, colliding into the ground akin to a meteor's impact. Explosions arose, and city blocks were eradicated, most certainly taking out innocent civilians in the process. Then a third, and finally a fourth struck the ground, creating an X formation from one another, many miles apart. Then at last, it appeared. Descending from what looked to be the heavens, slowly appeared the reformator, pulsating with its arrays of oranges and blues that sparked with wave after wave of energy into the world's surroundings. The people of Aurora then began to panic. Those on the streets started to freak out with confusion and shock, while the police department and fire department, all law takers, instantly kicked in the gear.
Oh no, they've begun phase 1.
Joby muttered as the worst of it all occurred within mere seconds. On the underside of the levitating rings, suddenly flapped open hundreds to thousands of hatches, all shimmering with electrical currents that held the conductor's power cells within. Then, like a rainstorm from hell itself, hundreds, if not thousands of orange and blue matter pods fell, pods that held the ameliorites within.
Are those?
Jada asked as they neared the ground. Suddenly, like bombs in the sky, the pod shattered open and out fell the creatures, all looking like squids falling from the heavens.
No! No!
Void gasped out as he attempted to shoot a portal open to the reformator, but found that it had been restricted by the firewall.
No! I can't get in!
Void cried as he continued to try and portal in. The only thing he was met with was an error sign, as well as a restricted access code within his arm plate. They wouldn't be able to just hop in with a drop. They needed something more, a grant of passage.
No! No, no!
Void continued to shout as the massive monsters landed upon the city in vast droves.
Oh my god!
Tucker uttered in horror, while they all watched from afar as the tendril beasts began to go on a rampage, throwing cars over, breaking into buildings, worst of all, attacking the people. Like dogs of war, they pounced and struck those unlucky enough to stay in their path. At that point, the city sirens went off, leaving those inside to stay huddled in, but for everyone else outside on the streets, to look and search for shelter immediately. In horror, Void stood motionless with Jida at his side, the two of them suddenly feeling a wave of nausea as it all looked so familiar. For Void, this was almost one-to-one with what the Glitch's attack on Salvaheim looked like. But for Jida, this was like a second night of 1,000 flames. People tried to fight back, and others fled. Some were successful, but most were not. It was an invasion, an army of dark creations that began to engulf the city, destroying it and absorbing innocent lives.
What have I done?
Void muttered in defeat, as everyone felt a massive weight of unease crawl into their hearts.
You won't be able to stop them on your own,
Joby blurted, getting everyone's attention.
Evelyn and Atlas have the keys to bypass the Reformattor's shields. They'll most certainly be down there commanding the ameliorites as per usual. But all of you combined won't be enough to get past the Horde.
Joby explained, leaving everyone to think.
What are you saying? Like we need an army or something? Like, what are you getting at, kid?
Nock asked with a stuttering tone, before Void's defeated face turned to that of a focused one.
An army. I think I know where to go.
Void revealed as all the screams of terror raged on from behind, causing his anger and fear to rise tenfold. How long do we have until extraction? Void then asked as he looked to his niece.
About 6 hours. It takes a while to charge. If you have a plan, I advise we do it now, because I'm not sure how much time they'll have.
Joby replied, watching as the hundreds upon thousands of beasts from around continued to attack civilians and attempt to get into other buildings. People were successfully getting into safe locations, but there were way too many outside. Too many to lose. Nodding, Void turned and shot another portal open, designated to a place where he hadn't visited since the holidays. That place being the home of the Ripples, Ophis. He knew they were warriors, and he would imagine that they would help. Surely they would, he reckoned. Jida, Nock, Pofnu, Joby, with me. Everyone else, I need you to rig the location stations. Locate large clusters of people and escort them to rooftops or underground locations, literally anywhere that can provide safety. Void commanded, leaving the others to worldly nod.
Well, you five go off. I'll contact some old friends from an old squadron. If the military isn't on their way now, then I best get a head start.
Tucker stated as he pulled out his cell phone and began to type away into a number pad. We were dispatch partners during our time of service. It's how we met. Sarv quickly revealed as she too brought out her phone to make some calls.
I'll start rigging the location stations. Whoever you're going to find, make it quick, cause holy shit.
Cod expressed before kissing Nock on the forehead and glancing towards the first stages of an attack that would go down in history. I'll be right with you, Jet added as he watched Cod trudge off. You, hurry and be safe, the robot said before scurrying off as well. You think the Ripples will actually help? Jada asked while holding her stomach as Void picked up Joby and allowed her to cling upon his back like a koala.
I sincerely hope,
he replied before feeling Pofnu run in between his legs and cross through.
You saw the fox. Let's go.
Nock cried out as he too leapt through the portal, leaving Jada to follow and Void with Joby last, all feeling a pure sense of dread that clawed their souls. Stepping through to be atop the massive hill that overlooked the village of Ripples, Void and the rest were met with a cold drizzle from rainy skies above. Ophis had not changed much since their skirmish a few years back, but the original trio were happy to say that it was still intact, even after releasing a pair of primordial snakes.
Come on, this way.
Void led as he sprinted forward and down the familiar slope of a hill that he, Nock, and Coco ran down back when. Mud splashed up from his boots, all while a cold breeze whooshed in between Jida, Pofnu, and Nock, the three of which looking worriedly upon the sparks ahead. But they couldn't blame them. So much had happened within the span of a few hours that it was completely reasonable for them to be acting in such a way.
Void, are you?
Nock asked before the spark interrupted.
No, I'm not.
He exclaimed as they all crossed through and entered the village made up of huts, mushroom homes, and trees, all surrounded by farm life. The Ripples that had been tending to their crops turned and waved upon the familiar travelers. Both amphibians and axolotls, as well as snakes now, nodded and didn't pay much mind to the Spark and his family as they rushed towards the massive lodge in the distance. They had saved their home back then and were always a welcome guest in their lands, even if it was a shock to see that the Constrictor clan was now on the side of good, it seemed. Void, if you need to talk about it, Jada began before the spark snapped back.
Not now. There's a time and place for everything. Now it's not the time nor the place,
he boasted, leaving Jaya to fall quiet in thought. Running up the flight of now refurbished stairs and approaching the large wooden doors, Void wasted no time and pushed the massive slabs open to the Great Lodge.
Aunt Delilah!
Void asked aloud as he and the others stepped inside the torch-lit environment.
Grandmother! It's Void! We need your help!
The Spark called aloud as he and the others turned around the vastly empty yet warm interior.
Who's Aunt Delilah?
Joby asked as she clung to Void and rested her worried little head on his shoulder.
An old family friend that will help us stop your father. I hope.
Void replied just as a familiar voice rang out from above.
Is that Novison? Void flippin' Novison and co?
Turning their heads, Void and the rest looked up to the stairs to see none other than Koko Ito, all grown up, but still as kooky as she was all those years back. Koko? Void asked with a short wave of joy rushing into his heart.
By the gods, it is you!
Koko exclaimed as she took a large leaping bound forward, landing upon the stairs and springing off them into a spinning land before the spark with open arms. Koko was still a red and purple-skinned froggy self as before. However, she was now a young adult and a high leader figure within her community. Her clothes were now that of reds and deep maroon sashes and cloths, giving her the appearance of a cherry-colored ninja. She wore robe ties and even had a greenish neck scarf that dangled from behind. Because of her new leadership role within her community, Koko's face painted tattoos were now that of gold as opposed to purple. Yet the most striking thing of note was a patch of hair atop her head that extended into a jeweled-off ponytail behind her noggin, one that female amphibian ripples would grow out once reaching maturity.
Oh my goodness, it's so good to see you! I love the new look! Nog, Jida, hello! And, by the gods, who's this little cutie patootie?
Koko squealed as she laid her eyes upon Joby, who shyly waved from over Void's shoulder.
Is this the baby? Oh my glorbs, congrats! This is so amazing! She's already so big!
Koko rambled on before Void took the frog by her hands and pulled her into a hug. Koko was now taller than Void, but to him, he still viewed the Ripple as like a little sister. Minus it all, it was great to see her again. It's good to see you too, kiddo. And no, she's not ours. Void greeted as the two pulled back from one another.
Oh, then who is she?
She looks like yours. Koko questioned before leaning forward with her thumb and index finger upon her chin. Void? A familiar voice then called from behind. Turning their heads, everyone set their sights upon the familiar, tall, and motherly presence of Aunt Delilah, or the grandmother as she was more commonly known as, visibly confused yet pleased to see the sparkler back in her presence. Everyone, what's going on? She questioned before suddenly taking notice of Joby over Void's arm. What is... Carefully putting Joby down and beside Jida, Void looked upwards upon his aunt with visibly tired eyes, and then bluntly stated their purpose. We need your help. With a confused look in her eyes, Delilah approached the spark and took a knee. The amount of questions radiating in her head were that of an almost endless degree. But upon seeing the spark state, his dense and torn clothes, she had to ask, What has happened to you, Sparklet? Delilah questioned as she reached her webbed hands forward and caressed Void's cheek, scarred face. This is gonna sound crazy, but long story short, my brother, Kor, he's alive. Void revealed to the grandmother's sudden shock. I beg your pardon? She asked, leaving Koko to ask aloud. You have a brother? Nodding, Void looked back to the rest, while Pofnu gently sat in between Joby's legs, whining with a worried attitude to his words. It's true. That little girl you're eyeing, that's his kid. Her name's Joby. Void introduced as Delilah gazed upon the lavender lemon crested spark with a bewildered stare. Joby? So wait, Kor Novason lives? What's the issue then? Is he in danger? She asked with genuine worry before Joby spoke aloud.
He is the danger.
Now Delilah was even more befuddled. It was like a truck slammed into her, a car of revelations and facts that just didn't add up in the moment. Void, show her the recordings. Jida suggested with a placement of her hand upon his shoulder. Looking over, Void nodded in agreement before looking back to the massive axolotl. Look, to make things quick because we're on short and serious time, Kor and two of his friends came crashing into our world with a plan to resurrect the sparks. I I helped them build a machine that would do just that, but discovered at the last minute that it would need to destroy my world in order to do such a feat. Now he's unleashed an army upon our city to do as such. He's betrayed our code, betrayed us. Void explained as he projected snippets of what happened. The reformatters crashing, reuniting with the Sparks, the conductors, all up until his and Joey's latest confrontation, and then ending with the horrific sight of the Ameliorites attacking Aurora's people. Stunned, Coco's joy dropped to that of shock. She covered her mouth and glanced between everyone, all while the grandmother stared on in disbelief. By the gods. She choked out before standing back the full height. I don't believe it. Your brother was a good boy. How could he? Delilah questioned as her yellow skin began to shimmer with a conflicted nature. Sparklet, what aid do you require of me in this time of need? Looking from the grandmother and then towards Coco, Void returned his gaze upon the tall axolotl and asked, I'm asking for your army to help us aid in this fight to save my home. We need to reach the reformatter, but we won't be able to with all those monsters in the way. Plus, me and my friends won't be enough. There's lives that need saving as we speak, and we can't get everyone. Void asked, leaving the grandmother to take a long breath in, with deep thought. Sparklet, our people haven't fought in years. I am unsure if they would be capable in confronting such a task. Delilah expressed with worry, leaving Void to step forward and having a panicking breath. Please, the people on my planet won't be capable of fighting this on their own. Delilah, please, we need your help. All of your help. Void beckoned with a stress-filled heart that the grandmother could see in full. I do suppose we owe you repayment for banishing Yaru. Delilah brought up as her eyes grew to a serious stare. Listen, I'll try to see what I can do, but chances are you may need to look elsewhere for an army. Looking down, Void took in a long breath and gently fist-bumped the sides of his legs. They couldn't stay there for long. He had to get moving, find another option. Every second wasted would be another second for a life to be taken. If the Ripples wouldn't help, then they had to find another ally to turn to. But who? Void asked. Well, if our peeps won't help, I assure you that I'll fight right by your side, big brother. Coco exclaimed while twirling her staff out and clanking its end upon the floor. Coco? Void asked, looking back at the frog warrior with surprised eyes. You don't just come bumbling into our turf and ask for help without gaining something. You guys saved my home. Let me help you save yours. Coco expressed with a wink that left Void and the others smiling to her kindness. I like her, Joey said with a tiny smile as Coco resheathed her staff upon her back. Very well. Coco, Void, everyone, the grandmother stated, turning back downwards. I will do what I can to rally some troops. Knowing what you have done here, I am certain that our people would be more than willing to help. Perhaps I can try and awaken Warnog if possible. Delilah suggested, leaving Jaya to step forward with a curious nature. I've tried to communicate with Warnog several times as of late, but he doesn't answer. Is he okay? She asked, audibly concerned for a dragon-like father figure in a sense. Warnog has returned to a deep slumber around these lands, one that he has not awoken to in the last few years. Like I said, I can try to awaken him, but chances are that it will be our people you will perhaps find in the front lines. Delilah assured, while taking in a long breath. Just do what you can. We're going to need all the help we can get. And I think I know where to look for another possible army option. Void revealed before dropping another portal. You do? Nock asked as everyone looked to a shimmering green star. The lands of lunar souls, the home of the crescents. Void revealed as Joby quickly got up upon the spark's back. The place where our time was apparently reversed? Jada asked, leaving Void the nod. When I battled the Crescent for the Starstone, there were a bunch of them in one place. I'm figuring it's worth a shot at this point. I can't think of any other options. Void suggested, as everyone simply fell to an agreeing state. There was no time for questioning. They had to go. It will be an honor to fight alongside a Spark once again. If not our people, then I will join you as soon as I can. The grandmother expressed with a simple nod down to the Spark and his allies. Thank you, grandmother. We'll see you then. Void bid his farewell before crossing through with Jida, Nock, Pofnu, and now Coco following behind, leaving Aunt Delilah to turn and quickly make her way to an announcement call. There was much that needed to be done, and fast.
Man, it's cold.
The small mechanic complained as a freezing breeze and pink snow blew downwards from the skies above. The lands of lunar souls had officially entered its winter season, delighting all those who dared to enter its domain. As opposed to last time, the Spark and his allies emerged on the outer sector of the city, rather than being on the far end of the lake, which had been frozen over completely. The castle-like city still remained as tall and abandoned as before, yet continued to enlight its wonder and beauty for all those who could see it. Minus the damage, it was forever breathtaking.
I've never been to this place before.
Nock sputtered out as Coco picked him up and propped the little mechanic to be atop her shoulders, for the snow was deep, completely engulfing Nock's knees.
It's very pretty, though. But who are we exactly looking for again?
Coco questioned as Void began to lead the way. An old warrior that helped me and Jida in the past. As far as I'm aware, he's our only chance we'll have at securing an army. Unless Delilah actually pulls through. Void answered as they walked into the city and took notice of its broken roads and crumbling interior. It appeared that time had finally begun to eat away at this old place. In a way, it was actually saddening to see such wonder fade to obscurity. But that's just how Mother Nature worked, everyone rationalized. Even in different realms, her hold always held on strong. Void, how do you even plan to find this crescent? Jada asked, while illuminating her hair to act as a beacon of heat for the worried travelers. He just showed up last time when we were in trouble. I'm hoping we'll either come across him or he'll just come across us. Void replied with an uncertain tone to his voice before Nock chimed in.
Wait, you don't actually know where to find him? Void, this could take hours.
He reasoned, leaving the blue-crested Spark to retort. What other choice do we have? He barked back with an audible strain in his voice. The others had never heard him so distressed. That was the best way they could describe it. A soul-torn cry that was visibly and audibly tearing Void up from the inside. It was devastating in their eyes. So for the time being, they kept their mouths shut. For several minutes they walked on, going around city blocks and ascending broken stairways, all in a vain hope to find the Crescent, or just any one of them for that matter. The energy of pain radiated off the two Sparks ahead, silent but visible, all up until Joby said something that threw everyone, including Void, off guard.
Uncle Void? Do I deserve to exist?
Joby asked, causing Void to stutter in his steps. What? He questioned with shock, before rotating his torso around to face the smaller Spark. Joby, what kind of question is that? Jada asked, walking up alongside the two Sparks, while Nock and Coco held their tongues, unsure of how to respond.
Because I was made in a lab. I was created through terrible means. I wasn't naturally born. I was engineered. A prototype. Something that Father used for his own gain.
Joby explained, looking into the older Spark's eyes.
Am I even me? Is my essence that of my own? What did my energy belong to before it was drained? Do I even deserve to be here?
Joby asked with a dry tone that left everyone hurt and broke into her words. Joby, it doesn't matter where you were made or who or what you are. The fact that you're breathing and talking means you deserve to have a life and exist just like the rest of us. Void replied as he slowed his walk to gaze upon his little niece. I don't know what extent and torture Core brought to you, or what false mindset has taken over your soul, but you are worthy of existence. I know it's hard to believe, but your father does love you, and so do we. You're more than an experiment. You're our child. Void reasoned, letting his growing fatherly attachments towards Joby out in those last few words.
Okay,
is all the little girl replied with, before seemingly looking to fall asleep upon Void's back, along with Gluppy, who had been resting in between her and his metal plates. Sighing with a tear-quivering face, Void gently rotated his torso back forward to normal. Amidst this, he clenched his fists and fought against billowing tears. Void? Jida asked, reaching a hand out to his shaking shoulder. Honey, she asked again, as Void stopped fully within his stride and took a hard kneel. Raising his hands up, Void covered his eyes, doing his best to not show his struggling composure to those around him. Brother? Coco asked as she and Nock approached, all while Pofnu came over to lick his weeping face. Blue, please look up. Jida pleaded as she rounded in front of Void. Kneeling as well, she took his large metal hands and pulled them away to reveal the Spark's shattered face. A deep shade of blue electricity buzzed slowly beneath his eyes, as his veins pulsated with the same dark lapis shade. Streams of tears fell down Void's face and scarred cheeks, all while his mouth had been quivered into a teeth-baring shake. The Spark couldn't just hold it in anymore. What Joby said, it had finally broke him. To all of it. He couldn't hold it in anymore. Hey, it's okay. Don't force yourself to hold it in. Let it out. Jida quietly asked her husband, while holding his face and wiping his tears with her thumbs. Just let yourself crumble. Don't be the leader right now. Just let yourself. Jida expressed with an understanding vocal tone as Void raised his hands up to grip hers. Pulling them down, Spark shut his eyes and slumped forward into his wife's arms, quietly crying and falling apart within. There you go. Let it out. Let it all out. Jida continued as she stroked her Spark's head, leaving Nock and Coco to simply watch on, unsure of what to say or do. Lotus was right, Void said, breaking the hicks and sniffles that engulfed his heart. What? Jida quickly retorted as Void slowly leaned his head back out from her hold. A cycle. A never-ending cycle. Void stated, recalling upon his greatest foe's final words. One moment you think things have settled, and the next, it just gets worse after the other. Yaru. Jack. Now my own blood. Void weakly expressed, narrowing his eyes to the side in thought. Now history is repeating itself. Monsters falling from the sky, destroying a home I hold dear. This time it's my fault. How could I have been so stupid in believing them? Void angrily expressed as his face scrunched to that of a defeated rage. Stupid for believing the words of a family you thought to be dead. Believing a promise by your own flesh and blood? Void, if my family came back from the dead and asked for my help, I would do the same damn thing as you. Jida reasoned as she used her hand to lift his rounded head back up. We were all fooled. You can't blame yourself for what's happening. Nock added, while Coco just nodded, going along with trying to help. Sighing and slumping further into the snow, Void gripped its pinkish shade with his metal digits and groaned deeply before returning to the conversation at hand. Well, some of us were bigger fools than others. This pain, you guys don't understand it. The spark tiredly muttered as Jida quickly replied. Blue, I do know this pain of betrayal. She revealed, causing the spark to raise his eyebrow. You do? He asked. Early on in my career as Aurora's Phantom, before moving in with Nock, there was another who took care of me. That being my uncle. Jida revealed before continuing. During that time, there was a criminal on the streets, going by the alias Scorn. Soon enough, I went to track him down, and I soon came to realize that it was my uncle wearing the mask. Having to put away the last member of my blood was heartbreaking, especially after being taken in by him for those few short years. I don't like talking about it, but I need you to understand that I understand. Slowly standing back up and taking Void with her, the musician caressed the side of his face with a stern nod before speaking again. This won't be like the last time. For either of us. No more running from our home. This time we stand and fight, with or without an army. Jida boasted as Void slowly collected himself and nodded back with a regained composure. For those we lost, and for those we honor. He beckoned back, just as a familiar voice suddenly called from above, one that startled everyone below.
You know, I was planning on watching this for a little while longer, but I'd say it's about time I make my debut.
Whirling their heads around, Void and the rest looked up to a crooked stone pillar to see the familiar green-cloaked, wooden bird-masked spear wielder watching them from above with his bright yellow eyes. Praises! Nock cried out, startling Joby awake to the scene. Whoa, is that him? Jida asked, as Void stood in front with a nodding head. Leaping down with his cloak flowing in the wind, the green-shaded crescent landed firm and tall upon the snow, standing tall to reveal his fit and armored-up body that glinted within the glistening snow. Oh, God. He's hot. Jida repeated, without realizing she had said those few words before. Mega hot! Coco exclaimed, making googly eyes towards the large warrior. Crescent? Void asked, slowly approaching the large behemoth of a bird. It's me. If you're wondering why we're here again, it's an important matter, a very important matter. Void began before the large warrior spoke up and interrupted Void mid-sentence.
You have come to ask for aid in battle. Before you question how I know, I can assure you that it is a definite yes. We will help you fight against what your brother plans to do to your homeworld.
The Crescent revealed with his cocky-sounding attitude, throwing everyone around him off with sudden shock. I didn't even... Void began, when suddenly, several more Crescents appeared. Males, females, all with spears, swords, axes, while all wearing a multitude of different colored robes. The only thing that remained the same were their masks and yellow eyes that all shimmered brightly within the light.
We overheard and read your thoughts and sorrows, Novison. Although our people have clashed in the past, your actions here and above in defeating the so-called glitched have resonated with us deeply. I believe we owe you a repayment for your efforts in ridding those beasts from our world.
The Green Crescent explained with a solid tone before tapping his spear against the ground and erupting the others into a chant-like call. Heard my... Wow, okay, just like that. No trial by combat like last time, no mysterious catch, you're just willing to help on the spot? Void asked, with an audible confusion resting within his chest.
Your heart is still that of gold, Novison. If it was stone, your spine would be in my hands.
The Crescent replied, before sheathing his spear along his back.
Not to mention, we've been getting rather bored. Let's just say we're up for getting our hands dirty once more. Allow us to aid you in this squabble.
The Crescent finished, nodding his head low. Wow. Thanks, Crescent. That means more than you could possibly imagine. Void thanked his unexpected ally, leaving the large bird to reply in his own sense of gratitude.
Please, call me Alfred.
He asked as a bunch of Crescents surrounded the group, ready to fight. Looking towards his allies, Void shrugged with a relieved face, all up until Void's arm began to ring. Looking down towards a built-in phone device that he had installed, the Spark could see that Sarv was attempting to get into contact with him. Without hesitation, the Spark answered and greeted. Hello?
Void, listen, hun. I hope you got things figured out because things are getting really bad. Real bad.
Sarv exclaimed as what sounded to be fighter jets flying overhead came through the speaker.
We need you here now. We're gearing up and getting ready to fight. We need you here.
She hooted through stutters as what sounded to be explosions arose right after. We're on our way, Void replied before cutting the call and shooting a portal back to Aurora. Looking over his shoulder, Alfred nodded his head towards a red-robed Crescent and spoke to him with one command.
Await my call.
He asked, leaving the other to nod. As always, he muttered back, as Void quickly beckoned for his allies to follow back through. With one last portal passage, Void, with Joby, Jida, Nock, Pofnu, along with Alfred and Coco, re-emerged upon the roof of the mechanic's workshop, and instantly ducked and held their ears as several fighter jets soared overhead towards the reformator. The large fighter crafts opened their underside hatches and launched sets of missiles towards the titanic reformator, only to be deflected off by a powerful force field. From all around, smoke and citywide damage began to spread. Ameliorates ran amok, as the once grand city that felt to be divided once before now mirrored one another, falling victim to yet another tragic downfall. Oh my god. Void muttered in horror as he looked out upon the city in turmoil. It could only have been an hour since they left, and in that short amount of time, so much damage had been done. Fire roared in the streets, buildings and skyscrapers were dealt with mass amounts of destruction, all while the beasts of Kor's creation raged on from below. By the gods, such chaos! Coco silently spoke in shock as all hell continued to break loose within Aurora. Hey, look at that! Nox suddenly blurted while pointing towards the reformator that levitated above the fancy side of the city. Emerging from the top, glass-looking shape blasted out a bright beam that looked to create an orange and violent storm circle that surrounded the city. It was practically a wall of dense clouds and electricity, one that wouldn't let anything in or anything out.
It's a barrier. They've begun phase 2. Their final stage is phase 4. That's when extraction happens.
Joby revealed, all while distant screams from those unfortunate enough to still be outside were dissolved into energy for Kor's cruel goal. Everyone, get inside! Tugger suddenly shouted as he burst back out to the roof. The large bull of a man was now wearing a bulletproof vest that had guns and bombs strapped to it. The once gentle giant now looked to be prepared for an inevitable fight ahead. At that moment, the sound of one of the fighter jets being destroyed erupted as it tried to fly out of the storm barrier. Debris and metal rained down from afar as one of the military got in, which was only a few jets, routed back to deliver another attempt of destruction. Quickly moving forward, the group found themselves rushing back inside, down the stairs, until ultimately ending up in Nox's main hub workshop, where everyone was huddled within, all panicking and terrified of what was going on outside.
Hey, did y'all find a damn army? Because Aurora could really use it.
Cod asked in strain as he took notice of both Coco and Alfred, while he had been working on the thumper with Jet.
One will be ready once Void gives me his word. Quite spiffy shop you got here.
The Crescent exclaimed before pecking a set of trinkets on the table with his wooden beak. Were you successful in getting civilians to safety? Void asked, approaching Sarv and the rest.
We did our best, sir. I assure you that much.
Jet replied as Naga began to talk with Kot to discuss the thumper's usage. As he did, Void took notice of Sarv as well. She was now also equipped with her gear, a large vest with 2 pistols at her side. The large Thorn had gotten this equipment out of their car that was still parked outside, sort of as a backup in case things got messy. I really hope that whatever armor you found helps, hon. 'Cause... Lord... Sarv expressed as the news ranted on about what was happening to Aurora, showing footage of the reformatter, blurred ameliorites, and the world leaders beginning to discuss what to do about the unbreachable storm.
This is exactly what happened to so many other worlds, Uncle Void. Fear, terror, sorrow. Will Mr. Alfred's army be enough?
She asked as the spark set her down. My soul is telling me as such. He added before turning around to see that Jida had suddenly disappeared. Freckles? Void questioned, now fully turning his mechanical body around. She went upstairs, hon. Sarv expressed, pointing towards the empty steps that glinted within the faint sunlight. Taking note of this, Void pat Joby's head and then mentioned a few words to the others. Give me a second. Wait here. He muttered before beginning to march his way back up the stairs. As Void ascended the wooden steps, he began to hear the words of his wife ringing out. She sounded to be talking to someone or something that was important. Maneuvering quietly, he stood beside the door to their room and listened, hearing what Jida was saying. Listeners, friends, this is Jida Woods, broadcasting to you for what may be the final time. Jida greeted as she ran a podcast, leaving the spark to peek his head inside. If anyone is even listening, then you know that things are, well, they're getting pretty hectic at the moment. And with this sudden emergence of this attack, there's without a doubt fear within all of us. Even the strongest within our city are most certainly feeling the effects. Slowly stepping in, Void quietly listened as half of his body stood in the doorway, just curiously hearing what Jida was going to say next. Now, I know at the moment, everything it has no words. But even during all of what may be happening, when everything seems to be lost, I ask of you, don't lose hope. Help is on the way. I know that for certain. She continued before taking a long breath and going on. As most of you know, our city, our people have faced trials like this before. The Night of 1,000 Flames, the snakes, the frostbite incident. And yet, we always manage to come out on top. Even when divided by wealth, we all stay strong as one, even when we don't realize it. We are so much more than we let ourselves believe. And I know that we'll pull through. Jida stuttered as conflicted thoughts filled her head. However, if this truly is the end, I want to let you all know that even in this trying hour, I will fight for you. Like I have for many years now. Even when the odds are against us, I will fight for you all. Me and my friends will fight for you, as we have before. I have been your phantom of Aurora City, and this may be my last message to you all. Stay strong, and be brave, Be very brave, as you always have been. This is Jida Woods, your friendly ghost, signing off. With a stunned face, Void fully allowed himself to enter the room. His jaw hung a tad, while his eyes were as wide as saucers. He couldn't believe what he had just heard. Freckles, you just... Void stuttered before the musician slowly turned in her chair. I did, she replied, before gently getting up and approaching her husband. Why? He asked back as they leaned their foreheads against one another. Because I don't know how this one's gonna end. All that's happened, it just feels different. Jida revealed her worries while looking towards the side. I feel as though, minus all that we've done, something in my gut is telling me that perhaps that this time it won't be in our favor. Jida muttered on, leaving Void to breathe in and out with a shaken breath. We've been through so much. It's not just us anymore. We have allies, an army. Look, if we can get through Salvaheim's horde, we can get through this. Void assured before lifting Jida's chin up. Salvaheim didn't have innocent people that needed saving. Roads, block ways. To find your brother's friends in this horde and massive city, it's gonna... I just fear someone, whether it be one of us or those downstairs. I feel like this may be the end of one of our stories. And I'm scared. Jida revealed as her body began to shake. Jida. Void softly spoke as he raised his left hand to the side of her cheek, and then maneuvered his other to rest atop her stomach in a comforting hold. That's not gonna happen. No one is going to die. Not them, not me, or you. It doesn't matter the odds. Like you said, we write our own stories. And this one is gonna end with Aurora still standing and us being parents. Void assured as he slowly embraced his wife, all while an orange glow of fire glinted off within the window's reflection. Like you just said, we gotta be brave. We'll stop this. We will. Void finished while nuzzling the side of his head against Jida's hair. I love you so goddamn much. Jida quietly muttered, with Void responding the same. I love you too. Pulling back from one another, Jida nodded her head and wiped her tears, before suddenly throwing her hands out to her sides and snapping both of her fingers. Confused, Void stood back to her sudden action, but then suddenly watched as what appeared to be a new set of clothes burned its way out over her current pair. Starting at her feet and burning over her shoes came a pair of turquoise green and deep red shaded snow boots that slowly arose into a new set of pants, with scaled orange stockings below her knees. As dark maroon pants replaced her jeans, a dragon-scaled, orange, armored body tunic wrapped itself over her baggy sweater, having gold lacings and a protective shell that looked to mainly fold upon her stomach. Without sleeves attached, a pair of divided arm wraps in the same maroon shade as her pants covered her forearms as her sweater burned away, leaving half of her shoulder open. As this happened, her old, brown, and greenish turquoise gloves shimmered over her hands. A red scarf then manifested around Jida's neck, as her old guitar strap emerged with the same instrument attached to its behind, looking modified in a strange way. Then at last, the musician's tied-down hair rose up into a large and wavy bun that was held in by a light green hairband, solidifying a new look for Jida that Void had never seen before. Whoa. What's this? The Spark asked as Jida adjusted to her new suit. A little thing I've been working on. I call it the Mama Armor. Jida revealed as she knocked on her belly, which was guarded by hard steel scales. It was only the other day when I finished it. I intended to use it to help you with the last conductor, but you insisted it'd just be you and Core to stop it. So I held off on it. Till now. Jida said as she fully turned around to show off her new look. My guitars upgraded the fight too. Nock helped out with the design upgrades. She finished before standing firm and holding her stomach. It looks good, Void stated as he brushed the side of his hand against the hard metal plate that protected Jida's belly bump. I know you've said on numerous occasions that you don't want me fighting, but if we're going to stop this, I'm going to have to help. There will be no warping or body manipulation, I promise. I have other means in defending myself. Jida assured, with Void nodding and knowing that they would all have to unite in this final stand for their home. Also, this isn't the only upgrade I designed, Jida revealed before turning and pulling up a file upon her computer. I was intending to give this to you on Valentine's Day, but I think it will serve you well given our current circumstances. Jida went on as she pulled up a diagram of a QR code designed in the Spark's crest of honor. What do you mean? Void asked as he eyed the familiar symbol. Give it a scan and find out, Jida teased before stepping aside. With a raised eyebrow, Void looked at the code and then scanned it with the crest atop his chest. Once ceasing the scan, he heard a ping to his arm. Looking down and then raising his limb up, he was notified of a new outfit said he could wear, one that looked rather appealing. Eyeing Jida, who was oddly smirking and then back down to the option in his hand, Void accepted the icon and suddenly felt his current form begin to shift. With a blue and electrical surge, the Spark's dark grays and blues reverted to that of lighter shades. Replacing his deep ocean colors of cloth, appeared out a cream white color, a stark contrast to the darkness that surrounded his buzzing blue panel lines. His lower chest then became a mixture of light lavenders and grays, while his pants turned to that of a calm shade of brown. Void's shoulder spheres grew a tad, and his forearms bounded down in a more cylindrical shape, as a belt suddenly collapsed over the Spark's waist. From this belt summoned forth a lower robe-like piece that cloaked around the Spark's leg sides and rear, in the same cream-white shade that now made up his repaired hoodie and forearms. Ending it off, emerged a set of light maroon boots, with electrical rings concealing their top, all while electrical plates appeared upon his new robes as well, as outlines of the Spark's insignia. As his new look settled, Void stared down at it with stunned eyes, falling in love with the whites and blues. It was a stark contrast to his other looks, but he didn't mind. If he were to try and bring his fellow Sparks back to the light, he needed to look the part, and this was most certainly his best outlook for change. I call it fatherhood, Jida revealed, leaving Void to look up with a small smirk. It's amazing, Freckles. Thank you, he said as the two held each other's hands and looked into one another's eyes. Yet, before they could share a kiss, Joby suddenly stumbled into the room, wearing a set of junk-like armor. Old junk-like armor. An old red and white striped hockey chest plate rested over her yellow shirt, with an orange and green shoulder pair accompanying it. Instead of her overalls, she now wore old and dirty jeans with cracked knee pads, ending with a set of tiny yellow and black boots. Atop her head was an old, dented, and orange biker helmet with a welded yellow visor attached to it, making the little Spark look as though she had just fled from a football game. I found some old stuff in a closet. You think this will work when we're out there? Joby asked, causing Jida to chuckle out with a small laugh. You found my old training suit. I'm surprised it still holds up, Jida expressed as she knelt down to Joby. It'll work just fine, sweetheart. I promise you that. It took a bullet right here once, the musician added, pointing to a dent. Jida then reached out and picked Joby up into her arms, to carry her as though she were her own daughter. It'll have to do, Void added before looking out the window and seeing the reformatter in the distance. It'll have to, he added before turning back around. Downstairs. It's time to stop this. Void beckoned before looking back towards the window and then down to the Lotus Cube that glinted within the orange light. It's time. He repeated again before the three made their way out of the room and down to the workshop. Descending the steps, Void, with Jida and Joby, returned back to the rest of the group, seeing that they were all ready for what may have been their final stand. Sarv and Tucker were geared up, guns at the ready, and prepared for whatever lay in wait. Beside them, to the Spark's surprise, was Nock, piloting the Thumper, which wasn't tweaking out this time around. Kot sat within a back piloting seat, all while the mechanic himself manned the controls. Beside the large mech stood the smaller one. Jet had his thrusters heated with both of his hands contorted in the massive blasters that shimmered with the ray of a sun's essence. Below him, Pofnu sat in between his legs, while both Alfred and Coco stood side by side with their weapons held firm. It was odd, Void thought, seeing all these people together in one room. People he didn't know for so long, yet felt as though he's known his whole life. Now, here they stood, ready to fight by his side, to save the world that welcomed him with open arms. Kor may have been his brother, but there was something more about this ragtag team of oddballs. In a way, perhaps his true family were those right before his very eyes. Taking a breath, Void walked forward and stood before the massive garage door, centimeters away from where this whole journey for him started. Looking down and eyeing his orange necklace, the Spark found his courage and turned to look back upon everyone as they eyed him and awaited a command. Everyone, I know what's happening now. What's going on out there. The fear, the chaos. As you all know, I have felt this once before, but never would I have imagined you'd all feel the same as I. Void began as he met the eyes of everyone within the room. Some of you know a pain similar to I than most. Like the world is collapsing beneath yourself. That life has come to a halt, as an unforeseen enemy strikes at what you care about most. Closing his eyes, Void's mind flashed back to Salvaheim, the glitches, and all of what followed, the events that led him here, to this very moment. Life. It's an endless barrage of unpredictable events. It gives and takes, perhaps more than the other to some people. And some of those said people just let the takings get to them. They fall, collapsing alongside the world. They give up. But not us. Summoning forth his spear, Void rose it up and smashed its rear against the stone floor, letting his worried face fall to that of a growing gaze of bravery. People like us, we have the power to fight for those that may not stand a chance. To fight and stop our histories from repeating upon others. Everyone in this room, you all have the power to fight for what's right. From your powers, to the military, or just being a tech whiz. You all have the ability to set this right. I am thankful to have you all by my side, to aid me in one of the deepest pits of my life. Looking over to his left, Void eyed Joby and Jida and felt a sense of warmth from their presence. His girls. His heart. I was no older than Joby when I started this journey of endless battles. Back then, I gave myself a choice. To run or fight. And I chose to fight. Before we make our move, I want to let you know that you also have a choice. Void boasted as he returned his look upon everyone before him. If you'd rather hide than fight, there's no shame, because I understand wanting to hide in a situation such as this. You don't have to risk your life for my brother's actions. My actions. Void exclaimed to everyone's surprise as he gazed upon their curious-filled minds.
I'm by your side, Uncle Void. I've hid my whole life in the shadows. It's time to step into the light and fight back.
Joby suddenly expressed through the crowd as she leapt from Jida's arms and ran to his side with Gluppy atop her back. You already know my decision, Blue. I'm at your command. Jida added as she approached as well, along with Povnu, who yipped with triumph. I as well, my creator. Jed joined in, approaching the spark.
This city practically raised me. If it means going down against a horde of monsters beyond imagination to save it, and the world, then I'd say it'd be a worthy death to fight alongside you, Novason.
Tucker boasted whilst pulling out a heavy artillery weapon from his backpack, cocking it back and all. Once a soldier, always a soldier. We're at your side, hun. Sarv added as the married pair joined as well.
You've taught me bravery, Void. Nothing can't be worse than nearly getting consumed by a god. I hope this tech of ours works just fine.
Nock boasted as he rose the Thumper's blasters up high. Yep, what everyone else said. Cott wordly exclaimed as he gave a thumbs up from the back seat. Inspiring speech, big bro. Now, let's get out there and kick your brother's ass! Coco exclaimed with a smirk while cracking her webbed knuckles, all while Alfred nodded with a look of approval. Nodding to all with a grateful stare, Void sent a surge of electricity into his spear and prepared to open the garage door. But before he did, Spark said one last thing before doing as such. Everyone, once you're out there, follow your hearts and listen to your souls. Let them guide you forth in battle. Just leave Kor and his friends to me. Void stated before throwing the garage door open and shooting out a portal to the main, fancy side of the city. Follow me. Void ended before gripping his spear tightly and running through to the other side, having his real allies following closely behind, prepared and ready to fight for what may be their final stand.